Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, if you do enjoy the video that you came here to watch, do me a favor, go ahead and hit that little red subscribe button at the bottom of the screen. It really does help my audience grow. It really does help this channel grow. It means more than you realize. So go ahead, hit that little red button. Also, remember, full episodes of the Aaron Torres podcast, wherever you download your podcast, Apple, Spotify, etc. Now, here is the video that you came here for.
All right, so let's switch gears and talk about things from the other perspective. That is, of course, the Michigan perspective. And yeah, I just spent a bunch of time talking Ohio State with good reason. As I often say, the more interesting story is in the losing locker room. I don't think there's any doubt that was the case on Saturday in Columbus. But at the same time, we got to spend a few minutes doing, to frankly use a bad term, we got to throw some roses at the feet of Michigan. Because Michigan, for the second straight year, not only beats Ohio State, but absolutely punks them to the point that there are no excuses, right? And I think part of the conversation, part of what makes this game and this victory so interesting is pretty straightforward. Is last year, the excuses out of Columbus, they flowed like water down the Mississippi, right? I joked about it on my radio show on Saturday night, but it was funny, right? Because last year, Ohio State, after that game, it was almost like your parents describing their childhood as opposed to yours. What do I mean by that? Remember when you were a kid and your parents used to say, well, you know, back in my day, we used to have to walk to school. Then it wasn't just that they walked to school, it was that they walked 5 miles. And then they walked 5 miles in 2 feet of snow. And then they walked 5 miles in 2 feet of snow uphill both ways. And it's like, at some point, you're like, Mom, stop. That doesn't even make sense. What are you talking about? And that was kind of the Ohio State thing last year. First, it's just Ohio State takes an L, credit to Michigan. Then it's, well, you know, the weather wasn't very good. We couldn't throw the ball. Then it was, well, you know, they were a little more physical than us, but we're going to figure it out in the offseason. Then it was, well, you know, the weather, physicality. And oh, by the way, I don't know if you heard, we had the flu running through our locker room, and it was not pretty. We had guys throw it up in the corner 10 minutes before kickoff. And it's like, at some point, the excuses have to stop from Ohio State. And I think that's what made the victory so much more special for Michigan. Is the weather was, you know, we just talked about it a minute ago from the Ohio State perspective, but the weather was perfect. It was in Columbus. Ohio State was banged up, but Michigan was without their Heisman Trophy running, caliber running back. And so there are no excuses. Michigan probably gets to enjoy this victory even more. And so I do want to talk about things from the Michigan perspective, because I will say, I do think it changes how we view Jim Harbaugh. I think it changes how we view J.J. McCarthy. I think it changes how we view Michigan in the context of the Big Ten and, frankly, the national championship or the national college football landscape. And so to start, I want to give two people specifically credit for the win. One that I have very much believed in through the years, and one that I frankly haven't. And so I got to take one big L and I got to take one big victory lap. And let's start with the L. I'll just be blunt. I was dead wrong on J.J. McCarthy, okay? And I think most people kind of know the background. Michigan starting quarterback J.J. McCarthy, but comes in as a 5-star last year, is a backup to Cade McNamara during a Big Ten championship season where you beat Ohio State. But all year long, you kind of hear this trickle out of, well, you know, McCarthy has more upside and he really probably gives them the better chance to win. And it's a matter of if not when he gets the job. And so when he did get the job earlier this year, I said, like, I get it, but you got to show me something at some point. And I'll be honest, through the first probably 8, 9, 10 weeks of the season, it's not that I didn't see the tools. It's not that I didn't see the potential, but we didn't actually need this. He didn't actually, in my opinion, actualize. In other words, we know he has a huge arm. We know he's a super athlete that can outsprint some really good defenders, but I never had to see it. And I kind of always questioned, did Michigan really make the right decision? Was this really the right move? Well, on Saturday, we saw that for sure it was. Now, to credit to J.J. McCarthy, I think you can even go back to the Illinois game last week, where in that game, he made some plays late to lead Michigan to victory. But Saturday, those tools were on full display. And maybe even more importantly, not only were the tools on full display, but he made plays when they mattered. He made plays in the game. And frankly, he made plays that Cade McNamara, the guy that he replaced, couldn't have made. First off, there's the passing stuff. Again, we knew how big the arm was. We knew how talented he was on paper and on film or whatever. But again, to see it in a big game like this was huge. And I think we get so caught up in those big touchdown passes. You know what I was actually more impressed by with JJ McCarthy on Saturday? It was actually his running ability against Ohio State. As I mentioned a minute ago, Michigan was really struggling to run the ball early. Now, they did hit a few big, deep passes, but at the same time, I thought when they were struggling to run the ball, you know what their run game actually became? Became JJ McCarthy breaking the pocket and picking up 6, 8, 10, 12 yards on a couple different runs. Only carried the ball 6 times, only carried the ball for 27 yards, but those 6 carries did enough to the defense, which did what they did to the defense, I should say, really changed the game, because now they do have the ability to run the ball. Now you have to account for JJ McCarthy. You can't load the box. He hits a few deep passes, and now all of a sudden you see the run game open up as well. And that was where Donovan Edwards late in the game really sealed the victory with 2 big runs to again get the win. But I don't think that Donovan Edwards has that success if JJ McCarthy isn't able to move the ball with his feet and also, of course, move the ball with his arms. 263 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Incredible, incredible, incredible effort from him. So readily, I'm just going to own it. I was dead wrong on JJ McCarthy. I got to take that L. I got to own it. And I got to say, I've said on this podcast, I've said on this show for years, not years, but months. You get the point. For months, I've said, I don't really know if he is the guy. One guy that I've been dead right about this whole time, though, it's my buddy Jim Harbaugh. And the Harbaugh stuff, it kind of reminds me of Brian Kelly, right? Is for years I defended Brian Kelly. I said, Notre Dame's a hard place to win in the modern era of college football. Now, I don't think Michigan is as hard to win at as Notre Dame. But what I would say, and what I have said, and what I will continue to say, is that I think for most of probably the last 20, 15, 10 years, whatever, especially prior to Harbaugh's arrival, I think the brand has been bigger and better than maybe the job itself. It's not an easy place to win. We know cold weather. Michigan doesn't create the caliber of high school players that many of the southern states, Louisiana, Georgia, Florida, Texas, certainly even California, Ohio, you don't get the same number of players. It's a good academic school. So the point I'm trying to make is that I always have defended Harbaugh. I don't think the job is as easy as people give it credit for. And I don't think he gets the credit he deserves for what he did early in the job. I know that up until last year, he never beat Ohio State, but let's call a spade here. He was going up early in his career against an established all-time head coach in Urban Meyer. And I'm not going to do Urban Meyer's top 5 or Urban Meyer's top 10. I don't know where Urban Meyer is, and I don't really know what you guys and girls think or know or care about Urban Meyer. But whatever happened off the field, whatever happened in the NFL, that guy was an incredible college football coach, 3 national championships at 2 different schools, and Harbaugh came in when he really had that thing operating at the highest level. By the way, second year, probably should have beaten Ohio State. We all know what happened. The 4th down that JT Barrett kind of snuck by. I still think it was a bad call, whatever. I think it was a bad spot. But the point I'm trying to make, Harbaugh comes in, and what's the knock? Well, he wins a lot of games, but he can't beat Ohio State. Well, can he not beat Ohio State, or could he not beat Urban Meyer, who was established at that point? Well, Urban Meyer leaves, and now we see what has started to happen. Year 1, Ryan Day, as we just discussed, had all Urban Meyer's players. He's awesome. 2020, they don't play because of COVID. Last 2 years, it's been a different story. And so when I look at Harbaugh, this goes back to what I have said about Harbaugh from the beginning. What I have said is this guy is a great coach. Michigan's not an easy job. And just look at the win-loss record. 10 wins his first year. 10 wins his second year. This overall is year 8 for Jim Harbaugh. And if you take out the COVID season of 2020, in his 7 other seasons, he's won at least 8 games every year. He's won 9 games 6 times in 7 years, and he's won 10 games 5 times in 7 seasons. That is unbelievable. And also context matters here. Michigan was not good when he took over. Michigan was not good. Michigan, I think the stat that I looked up earlier on Sunday, 3 10-win seasons in 11 years prior to his arrival. It might have even been 2. He's got 5 in 7 full seasons at Michigan. I always believed he got a bad rap, and I think he's finally now starting to get the credit he deserves. He's a little bit different. He doesn't do things the traditional way. He says some weird stuff sometimes, but this guy has always been a great football coach. And it is so nice to finally see people admit, you know what? This guy is awesome. Maybe we didn't give him enough credit. What I would say beyond that, now that we're done throwing roses at the feet of J.J. McCarthy and the feet of Jim Harbaugh, a couple other things stand out. The first one, and maybe most importantly, I'm just going to say it. It's going to hurt Ohio State fans, but I know that they know that I'm correct on this Monday following the Michigan-Ohio State game. Michigan has officially surpassed Ohio State as the best program in the Big Ten. Now, I'm not saying this can't flip next year, but when you get 2 wins in a row, when you get 2 wins over your biggest rival and you go to Columbus, punk Ohio State after they've spent the last year talking about, well, we've spent all this offseason fixing the things that plagued us against Michigan. We changed the offensive line coach. We changed the defensive coordinator. We paid $2 million a year for our defensive coordinator. And then you come out and Michigan does the exact same thing they did a year ago, only in better weather conditions on the road without their star running back Blake Corum. Guess what? Michigan has surpassed Ohio State. Doesn't mean it can't change back, but right now that is official. There is no doubt about it. Beyond that, here's my other thought on Michigan. Why does this have to be the ceiling? Why can't, as weird as it sounds, in year 8 for Jim Harbaugh, this be the beginning? And let me explain why. One, they've surpassed Ohio State. It's happened. I don't know how long it's going to be for. Nothing lasts forever in college football, but why can't it be for the foreseeable future? More importantly, here's the deal. If you keep building on this, if you start getting some of those guys that Ohio State couldn't get, or that Michigan couldn't get through the years, now you have a 12-team playoff where even in a down year, which for Michigan has been 10-3 under Jim Harbaugh, even in a down year, you're going to make the playoff. So what we have now is a scenario where when we go to 12 teams, as long as Jim Harbaugh is there, they're basically going to be an automatic entry. Now they're the best program. Now they're a top 4 seed. Now they play one less game. All of a sudden, it looks that much better. And that's in the future, by the way. That's not even talking about this year where, look, outside of Georgia, who do you really fear? And it's not as though I don't think that Michigan can play with Georgia if they meet again. Georgia's not perfect. Georgia's not unbeatable like they were a season ago, even though they're undefeated. So credit to Michigan, credit to Jim Harbaugh. Incredible victory for him. Michigan, like it or not, is officially the best program in college in the Big Ten. And more importantly, I think the best is yet to come. All right, that's what I want to do. Before we get to the coaching carousel stuff, want to take a quick break, just do some quick reaction on some other results from Saturday. USC, Notre Dame, Clemson losing, LSU losing, and kind of just reset up the playoff picture because I do think it is very interesting. We have 4 teams that as of today very much deserve to be in the playoff. But if one of them loses this weekend, what does that mean next? We're going to discuss it all